Welcome to another episode of Clinic Success Secrets, podcast where we uncover the strategies and insights that drive clinic growth and elevate patient care. I'm your host, Tommaso Dwyer, founder of Clinic Success Partners, a medical digital marketing agency dedicated to helping clinics serve more patients and achieve the success that they deserve. Join me as we dive into expert advice and success stories from clinic owners and healthcare leaders around the world. Today, it is my great honor to have Dr. Jimmy Yen on the show. We have an extremely broad range of experience with Jimmy, and I'm really looking forward to diving into it. Jimmy has created the quick restorative acupuncture technique, functional pulse diagnosis, which produces faster and more sustainable results for patients. These results, amongst a myriad of other things, has catapulted his clinic into being one of the top-rated acupuncture and wellness clinics in Austin, Texas. For anything from nerve problems to autoimmune disease, or problems to infertility, and so much more, Jimmy has been the forefront of it all. With his blend of Eastern and Western philosophies, layering technology, and so on, he really is at the cutting edge of what is possible today. So I'm really looking forward to diving in, learning a bit about your story, Jimmy, and yeah, we'll take it from there. Welcome.
Awesome. Thank you, Tomas. I'm excited to be on your podcast. And yeah, I love sharing my experience and also, just hearing other people's stories. So yeah, it's this is a great thing you're doing.
I appreciate it. So before we get stuck into what you're doing today, let's roll it back a bit and tell us a bit about how you got into the space that you're in and, what your journey looked like.
Yeah, I'll just give you the Cliff Notes version of it. So when I was pursuing my bachelor's degree in biochemistry at University of Texas at Austin, my dad at that time was, he was contemplating retiring, and after he retires, he's like, what should I do? And so he decided to pursue Chinese medicine after his retirement. He's originally a computer programmer, so a completely different view and field, but he was always into the health, I would say nutrition information since his 20s because of his health issues. He went through what many people probably go through all around the world. He has some sinus issues and some polyps in his sinuses, and he did the Western medicine route. You go to your family doctor, you get one medication, it works for a while, then it stops working, you go back, they give you another one where they increase the dose, and then it works for another few months, then it stops working again, and then you go back again. He just did that back and forth for probably a couple of years, and it just was not getting better. And so they were at a point where he went to an ENT, ear, nose, and throat doctor, and they were saying, hey, you need to have surgery. And that's what was a wake-up call for my dad. He didn't want to have surgery. And so he started researching into nutrition, and diet and lifestyle changes. And he started to figure out how to heal himself. And so fast forward, 40 years, he did not have to have surgery. He actually healed himself through some natural, ways of healing. Part of it was Chinese medicine, acupuncture, herbal medicine, and so forth. And so that was ingrained into me and beat into me when I was a kid, which led me to believe in natural medicine. And that's what we did, growing up. It was rare that we would take any type of medication. Everything was through our food, our diet, herb supplements, and so forth. And at my pivotal point when I was at UT, I was pursuing a biochemistry degree, wanting to actually pursue veterinary medicine. And I was at a fork in the road, and my dad at that time was retiring. He's like, hey, why don't you go and research some acupuncture schools for me? And that kind of steered me in the direction of Chinese medicine. I don't know if he did it intentionally or if just at the right time. And so that opened my eyes to Chinese medicine, and so I decided to forego veterinary medicine and pursue traditional Chinese medicine, and that was in 2001, and yeah, and so here I am today. What is that? We're 24, so 23 years later, I am a licensed acupuncturist.
Love it. And getting into it, I suppose, when you're starting off the clinic, what were some of the biggest obstacles or hurdles that you found when starting your business for the first time?
Yeah, great question. So just like any practitioner, and maybe like many practitioners in my field is we having zero business knowledge, zero how to build a business, how to market, systems, processes, knowing zero of that. I encumbered many, many challenges. So biggest part is, hey, you are trained to do some sort of medicine to treat people, to help people, but you were not trained on how to get people to come walk into your clinic. And so we received zero training. I mean, that's minimal training, but it was not helpful. So I consider it zero training in Chinese medicine school. And so I did not know how to get patients in the door. So I tried some grassroots methods, bootstrapped it. But yeah, I would say the biggest challenge was getting people in the door.
Nice. And how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, so, I did, one thing that I would say my dad taught me and really passed down to me is a strong work ethic. I was not afraid to work. I was not, because when you start your practice, the one thing you don't have is money. Well, most of us. I didn't have any money. I was actually in a severe debt. But most of us don't have some practitioners start off, they have money, but not all. So I didn't have money, but I had, guess what, a lot of time. And so I wasn't afraid to put in the time in order to get that. So I started doing, one thing that I knew that I needed to do was to overcome my fears. And one of my fear was I was an extreme introvert, which means I hated talking to people and especially new people. So knowing that was my weakness, I forced myself to join networking groups, which you have to introduce yourself and you have to talk to strangers. So I forced myself to go to 5 networking groups a week, to get out of my shell, to be able to speak to strangers and speak to people randomly and introduce them to Chinese medicine. So that was one of the first things I did was to figure out how to overcome my fears. And that helped me actually, I'm so glad I did that. And I also recommend when I coach other practitioners, I recommend that they do the same thing is because it will also help you be able to communicate to patients better in your practice. And so that was one of the biggest things that I've done. I've done many things. I've done almost everything marketing wise except radio. But yeah, that was probably one of the biggest turning points and best thing I did starting off.
Nice. I love that. As I said, everyone um quote it all the time, the whole book, The E Myth, by Michael E. Gerber, the whole idea of, everyone's starting off as a technician and they don't realize when starting a business, you also need to have entrepreneurial skills and managerial skills. And ultimately, those skill sets do need to be developed one way or another. And yeah, I respect and I admire the fact that you were putting yourself in a situation to um, develop those skills out of necessity when, better communication never hurt anybody. So
Yes.
I think for anyone listening, I think, as you said, um, work those muscles, basically, work the communication muscles. And as you said, when you start off, you don't have the social proof, but all you do have is time and energy. So if it's a case of brute forcing things in the short term, sometimes that's what's required.
Absolutely.
So when it came to actually scaling, I suppose, you currently are now one of the biggest, you know, uh, clinics in Boston in your respective space. You know, how did your focus, suppose, as this time went on, um, adjust from treating patients to overseeing the overall business strategy? Um, at was there an inflection point where you figured, right? I'm a business owner now. I'm not a in the weeds on a daily. How did that um transition come about?
Yeah, yeah, great question. So for me, I would say it's a little different compared to other practitioners. I knew very early on when I started my practice in 2007 that I wanted to have multiple locations. And so I went we've all probably heard this quote, start with the end in mind. Start
Right.
with the end in mind. So my end, I was already focused. Even before I started my practice, I knew I wanted to open multiple practices all around the world. First in Austin, but, eventually, all over the US. So I knew that, hey, if that's my goal, then I need to be a business owner. I need to learn how to be a business owner and not just be a technician, like Michael Gerber says, not be a technician in my practice. So I knew early on I needed to do that. So I started, to answer your question, I had that thinking process from the start that I wanted to learn how to become a business owner, because in my field, in the acupuncture field, I would say 99% and probably even more, close to 100% of practitioners, they are just paid employees. They don't actually own their practice. I knew very early on I wanted to own my practice, which means owning a practice to me means if I'm not there, if I am not physically present in my practice, will my practice continue to grow? Will it sustain and will it continue to grow without me and without my involvement in the day-to-day actions? So I knew early on I wanted that, and I had to achieve that in order to have multiple practices. Because if I have 5 practices, I cannot be in all 5 locations at the same time. It's just literally impossible, right? So early on, I knew that I needed to be a business owner, and I was searching. So I started finding mentors and coaches to who have been there, done that, so to speak. And so I could learn from them on how they were able to become a business owner, instead of a high paid employee.
Nice. And as you scaled that, to the numerous different clinics that you have, what were the key differences? I've always been intrigued by this, the whole idea of again, like Michael E. Gerber talks about productizing your services, so you have systems in place, and that's obviously an iterative process. What is the difference, I suppose, in approach for you now when opening a new clinic, or say your last clinic, versus when you first opened your second clinic? Between what's the difference between opening the second clinic and then
Mhm.
several iterations later, opening your latest one? How is that refined over time?
Yeah, so let me clarify. I didn't end up opening multiple clinics. I actually pivoted. I did have pre-COVID. I did have 2 clinics. But after COVID, post-COVID, things changed, and I actually consolidated my 2 clinics into 1 clinic. So now I currently just have 1 clinic. So I was just talking about when I first started, I had the vision of opening multiple clinics. That didn't come to fruition, but something I'm working on something else, so we can talk about that later. But to come back, so I just want to clarify that before I answer your question. So right now, I only have 1 practice, and it is a large practice. It's actually one of the larger practices in the entire U.S. But when I was opening my second clinic, I can answer from that standpoint. What was the difference? The difference was when I was deciding to open the second clinic, the thinking process was different in the sense of everything needs to be automated. So
Hmm.
everything needs to be duplicate. What that means, sometimes people think automation in medicine is not good. Um, yes, to some point, but I see automation as something that's phenomenal because it benefits the patient. Automation to me, in my definition of automation is every single patient comes into your clinic every single time, they get the same 5-star service and they get the same phenomenal results. That is automation. It's not about doing things cookie cutter and robots and stuff like that. At least not for me. Mine is about giving consistent 5-star service and consistent 5-star results. And we have been able to do that, and that's why, we are rated the number one acupuncture clinic in the US because of that. And so my thinking process now, when I'm going to open another clinic, everything has to be automated. We have to be able to deliver consistent results, phenomenal results, and consistent five-star service. If we can't do that, then I'm not gonna either hire the team member to do that, or I'm not gonna implement a certain process, or I'm not even just gonna, if I can't do it, if I know I can't do it, then I'm not going to open another clinic. Until I know for sure that I can do that, then we'll expand.
I love that. And then, sorry, apologies, my misunderstanding of that one. But
That's all right. No, 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 that's no worries.
with the growth of the business, obviously, as you said, there's an inevitable growth within the team as well. Uh, and generally, as that happens, I think a lot of your role becomes more and more about leadership, team management, culture, and so on. Would you mind sharing a bit about the strategies that you've implemented in order to foster a team-oriented culture, especially as you've expanded recently?
Yeah, so I can talk, it's funny that now conversations are about, it's like BC, we had BC before Christ and AD. Now it's
Yeah.
pre-COVID, post-COVID, right? I'll talk pre-COVID, what was the focus, and post-COVID, what was the focus, because they're completely opposite. Pre-COVID, how I built the team was based off of using money as the incentive. So assuming that everybody wants money, everybody's, finds a job for money, which many people do. It's not right or wrong, but that's, many people are lured into joining a team because of the potential to make a lot of money. And so that's pre-COVID. That was my focus of building a team was, hey, I am going to, provide this vehicle that will allow my team members to make as much money as they can. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with John Maxwell. He has a called the law of the lid. And so the law of the lid is basically the CEO or the owner, we set the ceiling to our team's potential. And so what that means is if our ceiling is low, like if I'm a poor leader and I'm not effective, then the business is not going to generate a lot of revenue. If the business doesn't generate a lot of revenue, then the team members aren't going to have multiple opportunities. You will have team members that may want to grow. They're like A players. They keep on want to grow, 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 and eventually they hit the ceiling and they can't grow anymore. And when they hit the ceiling, that's when they leave, right? And so it's as a CEO, as a CEO and the owner of the business, it is our job to make sure that ceiling keeps on getting raised so that our top performing employees, our team members, never get close to hitting that ceiling. And so pre-COVID, that was my focus was raising the revenue and raising. So more revenue means more opportunity to make more money. So that was pre-COVID. That's how I built my team that way. And now post-COVID, completely opposite. Now post-COVID, I had some life-changing events. I'm a Christian and I'm a believer, and so I really started pursuing my faith post-COVID and started to realize, hey, money is not what I want to be focused on. And I don't want to build a team that's focused on money. I want to build a team that is focused on people that really want to help other people. And they show up for work because they want to help people, not because they want to make a lot of money. The money will come second, but what I say post-COVID, how I built my team is people first. And pre-COVID, it was profit first. Profit first, people second. And post-COVID is people first and then profit second. And so now, even through the hiring process, I'm focused on, hey, why are you wanting to join our team? Yes, you're going to have, I still lift the ceiling. Just because I'm people first, some people misinterpret that as saying that, oh, then you're not making profit. No, no, no. Actually, we are making more profit post-COVID than pre-COVID. So it's a phenomenal recipe. When you focus on your people first, they actually start performing. You hire the right people, and they start performing phenomenally, and the profit, the net margin, your business's net margin just starts to go higher and higher. Pre-COVID, when I was just focused on money and incentivizing people with money, my net margin was tiny, was small, and it was just like we're constantly having to push people to do better. That was pre-COVID. Once I switched to the people first and focused on my team members, now we focus on growing our team members, not just with our business, but
Yeah.
personally as well. We help them grow them professionally, financially, and personally. And we also have them, of course, our patients as well. But just drastic difference in my leadership and growth strategies.
I love that. I think again, first of all, I commend that, your faith and the fact that you're doing this for something bigger. I think why we try to make money is often more important than how much, to a point. And fundamentally, really, what you're doing is you're operating from a place of love as opposed to fear, and abundance
Yep.
versus scarcity. And then, as you said, everything kind of flows your way because do good to the world and things come back at you. So I think it's a real lesson in that, which I love. Um, in terms, so you mentioned obviously the focus really is developing people both professionally and personally. Can you give
Personally, yeah.
exactly? Can you give an example of what that looks like on the personal level, uh, for anybody listening?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, Many examples. I will say, like from a personal perspective, uh, s- there is we have many team members who I think it's everywhere in the U.S. as well, all around the world. When people start getting successful, they start thinking about paying back and showing gratitude to their parents because it's our parents that got us to where we are today. And uh, so many of our team members, they're like, "Oh, if one of my goals," because I have them write down their goals, and we have meetings with them, and many of their goals are, "Hey, I want to be able to buy a house for my parents. I want to be able to buy a car for my parents. I want to be able to take my parents on vacation. I want to be able to take my family on vacation. I want to be able to support, and this is intermingled with financial, as well. I want to be able to support my family, my parents. They're getting old. They're still working, but they have all these health issues. I would love to be able to make enough money to support where my parents don't have to work again. And so those are a lot of the goals that our team members have. And last year, we track our goals, in the sense of our success as a team. And it's really my success as a CEO. 70% of our team members achieved all their goals on our team.
Wow.
Yeah. So
And
it,
this was the annual. Wow, that's insane.
yeah.
That's incredible.
So that is phenomenal. But for me, that's barely passing. Because for me, that number needs to be 100%. So it's my responsibility because this is how I lead my team and what I do as a CEO right now. As the CEO, I tell every team member my responsibility is not to grow the company. That is not my responsibility. I only have one responsibility on my team, and that is to help every one of my team members achieve their professional, financial, and personal goals. That is my only job. And so, yes, I barely got a passing grade last year. So I'm shooting for, a better grade this year. But that's my sole focus as a CEO is to help my team members achieve their professional, financial, and personal goals.
Again, I love this whole. I guess to me, it's just the term abundance kind of springs to mind because it is the definition of you're having your cake and eating it, and not in a selfish way, but you are. It is a prime example of um altruistic behavior. I suppose the only thing that I could think of. Um, Ultimately paying off. So ironically, by giving, so to speak, you
Mhm.
are actually receiving more. So just um yeah, I think I love the fact that again you're operating at this sort of place of love, and that's actually reaping probably the benefits more than when you are grinding yourself down to the ground. And I know you probably are putting in hours, but at least when you do put in long hours now, you can look at yourself in the mirror at the end of a hard day and say, I made a difference today. So I love that so much.
Yeah, actually, yeah, my clinic is just one of my businesses. Um, so I have a couple of other businesses, but my clinic is my main business, and I actually do not spend as much time. I probably spend about 10% of my time with my team.
All right. So on that topic, tell us all about the other businesses. I know you're dying to, and I'm dying to hear about it and share.
Well, I can't share too much about it. Whatever you call whatever, yeah, whatever I can, yeah. So what I can share is this. It is going to be something big and potentially, probably 100,000 times bigger than my current clinic. Um, and it is coming out of that, same thing of how my focus is on people. So people is my team members, it's the patients we serve, but it's also our community. So many people I would say earlier this year, I went on a mission trip with my church and we went to a couple of different countries. We went to Laos, we went to Vietnam, the Philippines, and then the country that I was born in, Taiwan. Um, and when I went on those mission trips, we visited, people. These are especially Laos. Laos was probably the most impoverished country that out of the four that we went to, and then Vietnam, and then Philippines. So they're poverty is still rampant in there. And just to see those people there, number one, side note, I'm gonna tangent off just for 1 second.
Yeah.
They have 1,000 times less of stuff that we have.
Yeah.
You name it, clothes, cars, electricity, running water, just stuff we take for granted, especially here in the US, right? And they have 1,000 times less stuff than we have, but they're 1,000 times happier than we are. And that really shifted my mind. But coming back to many of them have health issues and they just can't afford healthcare. Many of them live too rural. That we went into the mountains in Laos, and it was crazy. I mean, these are just they didn't even have they still don't have roads up to
I,
their village.
I know that. Yeah.
Yeah, it is crazy. Um, but funny thing, they had cell phones, though. They didn't have roads, but they had cell phones.
Yeah.
But,
Uh,
yeah, so so if they got sick, they would have to drive 2 hours down a dirt, rocky path, not a road, a path, uh, to the nearest doctor. And I'm like, man, that's just with technology we have in the developed countries all around the world, like North America, Australia, even China. There's so much developed technology, but we still have places in this earth that are like that,
yeah.
do not have access to any type of medicine, right?
Yeah.
So I was thinking, man, what if I could somehow uh, make what we do in my practice at Achieve Integrative Health, Chinese medicine, make it accessible to anybody in the world? What would it require? And so one of the things that we are developing is in my practice right now, when I started in 2007, I developed my own diagnostic technique. It's palpating the radial pulse. It's called pulse diagnosis. And I created my own technique. There's many techniques, but I created my own technique that made it duplicatable. And I was thinking, what if I digitize that? Because right now we're doing it with fingers, but what if I could make a device that could help, that people could use anywhere? They don't need to have any Chinese medicine background. They just need to be able to slap on the device and it'll read their pulse. And my pulse, it's called functional pulse diagnosis.
Yeah.
My functional pulse diagnosis can help identify the blood circulation to the organs in the body, and it can tell us which organs are not functioning at optimal levels. And when we do that in my practice, we identify those are the organs that are dysfunctioning, and those are the ones that are causing the problems. Then my team will go in and help restore their function of those organs that we identified that were dysfunctioning. Once we restore the organ functions, then the person's body starts to heal itself again
Mm.
without medication, surgery, pills, and so forth. And so that's what I'm working on, is to
That's
create a digitized my diagnostic technique that can be shipped to anywhere in the world, and it can help them assess their organ function and tell them what's wrong, and they can get straight to the root cause and actually fix it.
I love it. I mean, I definitely want to hear more about the visionary. What I would say though on the topic of this, I spent a lot of time living in Bali in Indonesia, so there's a lot of that you'll see the smiliest and happiest people you've ever seen in the world, with corrugated steel rooftops where they live, like absolutely nothing apart from a cell phone, as you said. And you won't find anyone that's more grateful. The simple things, as we said, most generous for what they have, most grateful. So um what does jump out though, as you said, I've been to Thailand, um uh spent a bit of time there. I haven't been to Vietnam or Laos yet, but the difference in healthcare in some of the rural places, now some of them, the more built up ones, are very good, but it it's sad to see. So I think I love the fact that you're really making this so accessible without any need for crazy inventory or
Mhm.
things like that. So doubling down on that, right?
Oh, can I ask you a question really quick?
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah,
How long were you in Bali?
3.5 years. I
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a lot of time.
We because my wife and I, we are planning to go no, not this year, but next year to Bali.
Give me a shout. Either I'm only going for Christmas. I spent half I bounce between the two. So I'll give you
Good.
recommendations. Yeah.
Okay, cool, cool, cool.
Yeah, I know better than Ireland. Uh, but what I was saying was, so highly recommend. You'll have a great time. But okay, so let's fast forward. It's 2035. You've been, focusing on the relationship based style of business growth for the
Mm,
practice. You've been doubling down on this business, and I know you have probably a myriad of other focuses as well. What does 2035 for Jimmy N look like? Everything has worked out. It's all paid off. The prayers have been answered.
yeah.
Where are we? What does it look like?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I've thought about that too. Um, so what it looks like is this: um, this technology that I developed, that I'm developing right now, it would be go to, I would say many countries in the world, especially what I call, this is called a 1040 window. 1040 window is, I believe it's longitude, latitude. It's the section of the world that these people have never heard of the gospel, never heard of the Bible, and they don't even know anything about Jesus. So fast forward to 2030, I would, I envision countries would have access to, number one, the technology I'm developing, and through the technology, they'll be able to learn about Jesus, the Bible, and so forth. And for me and myself, my wife, we have a vision. We have a vision of being missionaries, and so we eventually will be in Asia, Southeast Asia. I envision myself in Southeast Asia. Not sure where, maybe Taiwan, maybe Vietnam, I'm not sure. But we're living there as a hub, to also facilitate the manufacturing of the herbs and supplements that this device will be able, when you put this device on, it'll tell you what herbs and supplements you may need to help you restore the organ function. And so the source of those herbs are from Asia. And so we will be in Asia, kind of maybe having a manufacturing company to produce all of our herbs and supplements for us to distribute to these 1040 windows. And eventually, the areas where they're so impoverished that we would have a nonprofit foundation that would provide um, free access to these herbs and supplements, and so that they can, yeah, these people can receive some type of natural medicine. Um, so that's what I envision.
I love that. Um, that's yeah, it's yeah, and obviously it's inspiring, but there's so many questions to ask on that. But what I would say is most the genuine curiosity in me. So
Mhm.
there's a metaphor I'm going to quote, and then I've there's for anyone listening, I've probably read, as a friend of mine said, Tomas, you've read 30% of every book ever. So I quote a lot of books and I quote a lot of references, but um one of them is usually that everything boils down to the quality of relationships, both with yourself and others. That's obviously reflected in how you grow your business. But The other one is a metaphor that I often think of. Definitely have lost sleep over because I think it's a big one that everyone encounters. But have you ever, maybe we've talked about this in our previous conversations. Have I talked to you about the concept of the second mountain before?
You mentioned that, yes.
Yeah. So again, for anyone listening here, you in life you cross one or two mountains. The first one is egocentric. I'll show you how great I am. Um, me versus the world type mission. The revenue driven or profit driven entrepreneur. The uh, stardom and fame driven, celebrity or actress or actor or whatever. The uh, yeah, the glory filled athlete. And basically, what happens is these individuals have a tendency to end up on a hedonic treadmill, looking for more, looking for more, looking for more. They get to the top of the mountain. They look around, and there's a fall from grace, literally.
Yeah.
And they're in this, what they call the valley of despair. And some people don't get out of it. And that is why you often find very successful people, depressed, etc. And then they have the other people, the Jimmy Yens. The people who seem at peace and have an aura of peace and meaning behind them. And that could be a person that's helping out the local community. That's the proud father, a proud mother, a monk, a missionary. Something basically where they're a part of something bigger than themselves. And by definition, if you're not living for yourself, then it's very difficult to be on a hedonic treadmill because pleasure is not the source. It's it's meaning. And I think
Exactly.
when you view it through that lens, it does raise a big question. Is there an inflection point at which you switch mountains? Should you be going for the second mountain from day one? Is there a minimum viable dose of first mountainous? A level of skill or their character traits that you develop along the first mountain to prepare you for the second. My question really is, Jimmy, at what point do you think someone should start looking at the second mountain? And do you have any advice for people that are in their career, businessmen, businesswomen, etc., that maybe want to do something more meaningful, that maybe their monetary success or whatever it is, their superficial success feels empty and they want to be part of something bigger? What's your advice? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question, yeah, and I love the analogy actually, when you were saying about the 2 mountains, there's a saying in Chinese, 一山又比一山高. So when you're approaching that first mountain and you're trying to get more and more and more, after you reach the top, so that saying is, there's always a taller mountain. One mountain, there's always another taller mountain. So that if you keep on pursuing that first mountain, it will never end because there's always a bigger mountain, right? So that's what it reminded me. But to answer your question, um, you know, if you asked me pre-COVID, my answer would be different. But I'm going to talk about where I am right now. And so this is one thing I do. I coach a lot of practitioners all around the world, and one thing that I get them to focus on is kind of the answer. Kind of what I said it earlier on. Always have the end in mind. Whatever you do in life, what is the end in mind, right? What's the result you're trying to achieve? The final result, not your 10-year result, your final result. When you're on your deathbed and you look back at your life, what are you going to be the most grateful for? That you have no regrets. That type of end result is what I'm talking about. Thinking about what type of end result. And most people, just the ones I've talked to, most people want, I would say, joy in their life. Nobody wants to be miserable, right? I mean, there are some people that I've met that seem like they want misery, but most people want to have joy in their life. So then if that's the case, I would say, hey, define joy for you, for yourself. For anybody that's listening, what does joy look like? And I want to separate joy from happiness, because happiness is, in my opinion, these are my definitions, happiness and joy are not the same thing.
Right.
I think today, people who pursue the first mountain, like I did, I pursued the first mountain initially, pre-COVID. I was pursuing happiness. But And even though we've all heard the same saying, money can't buy you happiness, but we keep pursuing happiness, including myself back then. But everybody keeps on seeking happiness. Happiness and joy are different, and here's one of the biggest difference. Happiness is short term. It's that adrenaline rush, that euphoria, and then it goes away. Joy is forever peace. And so when you truly have joy, that will never go away. You will have peace, right? But when you seek happiness, it comes and goes. That's why you'll go in the valleys, the hills. You'll be up and down, up and down. You get a raise, and you're on top of the mountain. Then you figure out, oh man, I have to do all this work. Then you go back to the valley. Just up and down. And so figuring out, what do you want? Do you want to forever be on that roller coaster ride for the rest of your life, which is the pursuit of happiness? Or do you want real joy and peace for the rest of your life? And so one of the things, and I'll share an example, because when I went on the missionary trip and I saw how other people were so happy, and actually when I went to those places, I was happier. I had so much peace. That trip helped me gain more joy and peace. And so then immediately when I came back, I mean, even during the trip, I was like, man, yeah, I'm talking about myself and my wife, we have a lot of excess stuff. Abundance is a great thing, but it's also an evil thing, in my opinion. We had a lot of abundance. I love cars. I had a nice car, but when I was on the trip, I was like, "Man, I don't need any of that to have joy. I needed that to have happiness, but I don't want happiness anymore. I want joy and peace. I want it to be forever, long lasting." So the first thing I did when I came back from the trip is I sold my car. And now we just consolidated, right? We got rid of a lot of wasteful things. We stopped buying all these things to make us happy and really focused on what is going to help us continue and feed that peace and joy. So for other people, and that's just my personal experience. Again, for your listeners, and anybody who's listening, decide. I'm not telling you to pursue joy and peace. I'm saying decide what you want, what's the end result, and write down, because I write my goals down every single day. Write down, what does that look like? What does really joy and peace look like to you? Is it having the mansion on the hill? Or is it having the Rolls Royce car? Is that really your joy? Right? If it is, then that's great. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but get clear about what is truly your definition of joy and peace, and immediately start pursuing it right now. So to answer your second question, when should people start looking at the second mountain? Hindsight is 2020. You should start right now, because you're wasting time. Why would you waste time being miserable? Even though you have happiness, but you have misery and happiness coming and going. Why would you waste your life? Our life is finite. You're only going to be on this earth for a certain amount of time. Why would you waste any breath, any second of your life on something that does not give you joy and peace? I would recommend everybody start today on focusing on the second mountain.
That was beautiful. I love that. I mean, this is definitely a trajectory of the conversation that I could talk about this part all day. So
Same here.
and okay, so first of all, I love everything you said there, and I think I mean, I personally, this is sort of like, this isn't even the business side of things, like on a personal level. I think I've had, I've had friends that do very, very well business wise, and it's then they reach the top of the first mountain, and then 2, 3 months later, I talk to them, they're legitimately depressed. Like, you've just accomplished there. I remember a friend of mine. He for the longest time, he was the e-commerce space, and he was struggling. He was enjoying the grind. He worked insane hours, and I remember saying to him, like, "Why do you want to make the level of money that you want to make?" And again, they're ambitious goals, and he's a young guy, and he's like, "I want it. I'll figure out then." I was like, Okay. And again, I'm all for ambition and drive and all that. And all of a sudden, everything kicked off for him. Picked up. And the second I did, I saw him 2 months later, and the man hadn't slept in a fortnight. He'd no idea what to do. His revenue had grown, but his expenses had blown through the roof too. So all of a sudden, he had,
Mhm.
uh, you know, six figures to just keep maintaining the business. He was like, "This is not what I asked at all."
Yeah.
And I don't know. It does raise the question, what's it all worth, and what is the end goal? As Stephen Covey was saying, certain habits are highly effective people begin with the ending in mind. And then what you're saying, I think it reminds me of another guy I quote a lot, which is Naval Ravikant. And I'm not sure if he's a big VC. He's kind of nicknamed the philosopher VC, venture capitalist. He's very, very, he's like, the way I describe him is I read a lot of m- stoicism. He's like, if I'm not sure how familiar you are with stoicism, but it's like, he's as if Marcus Aurelius, one of the Greek philosophers, was in tech or was an entrepreneur. And he talks a lot about this concept that you've talked about. Now, for the sake of naming consistency, he does call it happiness, but his description of happiness is what you would call joy. And he said, I think what he said was, men say they want peace of mind, but they don't really want peace of mind. They want peace from mind. They want to quieten the part of their mind that is always questioning, is this what I should be doing? I mean, Carl Jung talks a lot about this. I'm a big psychology nerd. He talks about the idea between, any neurosis, anxiety, depression, sadness comes from a conflict between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind, your gut, God, what have you.
Yep.
And on the peace side of things, he said, happiness is peace in motion. Peace is what we're really after. Because if you're
Mhm.
peaceful, you can be happy whenever you want at the flick of a switch. Happiness is just peace in motion. I think that's very reminiscent of what you were just saying.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. So again, the big question is, I know your 5-year plan, 10-year plan. You mentioned it's all about the end. What does the end look like for you? What is the impact? Do you want to, um, when all is said and done, the end of your life, what is the impact? Or what do you want to experience? What do you want to feel, um, at the end? This is a deep
Yeah.
podcast, but
Yeah, yeah, no,
yeah,
I talk about this with my wife. We talk about this, very frequently, almost daily. And I think about it. I'm a big thinker. I like to have a lot of peace and quiet, so I think a lot. So I've thought about this. So, but it's a great question. Yeah, this is what I envision is 8 billion people have access to natural healthcare. That's one of the, if it's legacy, is that there's 8 billion people right now. So 8 billion people have the, and what I mean by, let me clarify that. It's not about medicine. It's about having access to the information on how to take control of their own health. It's not even that they are doing Chinese medicine. It's they have the information that empowers them to be able to take care of their health, their family's health, and their community's health. I am just a conduit, of that happening.
a vessel. Yeah,
Yeah.
nice. I love it. Um, I want to be respectful of your time, so I might ask one more quick question, and
Yeah.
we'll leave it at that. Given where I could see where the passion really shines, we talk a lot on this podcast about marketing, about business, about systems, about you name it. But the Hindus would call it dharma, whatever it is. I think this is the sort of stuff that lights me up. I nerd out about business, but I really nerd out about the deeper stuff that we're talking about right now. So again, your advice to this point has been get started today. That's good. What if somebody feels called to do something other than just focus on revenue, profit for the sake of profit, but they don't know what it is? You went to Southeast Asia. You were inspired there. I'm assuming that was a catalyst that wasn't clarified. Um, But yeah, for other people that know the feel called to do something bigger, but don't know where to start, what would you say to them?
I would say, you know, I'll tell you, my answer is kinda contradictory to how I
Okay.
and I wanna explain this because my old mindset, very closed mindset, it's like, when people tell me they like to travel all around the world to get to know different cultures, I'm like, yeah, you just don't wanna work. You just don't wanna, grind it out. But after me experiencing that and it's changed my life, that's I'm going to say the opposite of what I used to believe. Shit, so post-COVID versus pre-COVID is I'm a completely really a completely 180 on me. And so I would say, "Hey, get out into the world, go and visit different cultures." Not necessarily to, go into the vacation spots, because when I went to Asia, I didn't go to any vacation spots, right?
Yeah.
I went because when you go to the vacation spots, you get um,
The Disney.
dog yeah, the dog and pony show. It's not what's reality in that country. I went into the mountains, in the rural mountains that, nobody goes to. You don't go there for sightseeing. Right? I went to the coffee bean,
Plantations.
yeah, the plantations over there, the coffee bean manufacturing facilities. I went down to where people don't visitors, travelers don't go. So I would recommend go to different countries in the world and you have a passion. So go to a country that maybe is known for something that's related to your passion somehow and go to that country, talk to the locals, experience the locals, try to live as close to the locals as you can. Because we didn't live in the rural, we lived out in the mountains. When I went to, like, for example, Laos, we lived in the mountains, with the family that was missionaries there. And
Yep.
so live out in those areas so you can experience it and not the touristy stuff. And maybe through that, and just really and here's another thing, don't plan it where it's, like, back to back to back to everything's have spread out a time. Maybe just go to one place. 1 week, one place. That will allow your mind to calm down. Just nature in itself, like, being in the mountains, when you see just peace and quiet,
Mm.
like, no noise, that will do something to your brain, right? You can talk about the delta waves, and all the waves in their brain. Just that peace and quiet in the mountains will do something to you. So go to one place and really absorb that culture. And yeah, I would just say do that. And if that doesn't help you push you more towards, more clarity as to exactly what you want to do, then next time go to a different place. But focus, don't just go randomly. Go to a place that is somewhat related to your passion, right? If you don't know your passion, then that's the first part. Figure out what your passion
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I would recommend, which is completely opposite advice, and I was giving pre-COVID.
You 10 years ago would be like, what are you doing? Shut up.
Yeah. Are you wasting your time?
Yeah,
How is that helping business?
exactly.
How is that in the bottom line?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But as you said, I mean, the benefits have spoken for themselves.
Oh yeah.
Um, that's the thing. Ironically, you're actually doing, and it's, again, I'm getting very meta with this, but this is, maybe because I usually live in Bali. So everything you're saying is something I like, I've seen firsthand, I've experienced firsthand. I've stayed with local families in Indonesia where they,
Awesome.
God love them, they're probably making 100, 200 a month. And you've seen this yourself. They've absolutely nothing but this. I've been to remote parts of random Indonesian islands where the only way you can get around is by bicycle. And, you know, the little kids are coming up to you and they're so appreciative. There's
Yes.
nothing. And um, what I would say on this, and I was having a podcast with a psychiatrist for, and we referred to something a friend of mine said before, which is you can't outthink your endocrine system. And maybe but the point being is if you're fundamentally in sympathetic state, meditate all you want. It will help to a point, but if you're chronically stressed and if you're listening to this and you're running on the hamster wheel and you've got that again, you've got the little card in front of you. I know hamsters don't eat carrots, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Going to be a big hamster. They've got big hamsters, Ireland. So whatever it is, the incentive. I don't know what I don't know how
Yeah.
hamsters eat. It's hard, I suppose, to stick with the horse metaphor. You got your blinkers on. You cannot see the wood from the trees. What I'm getting at is that the only way you can conceptualize what it would be like to be at peace and what decisions you would make when you're at peace is if you have a chance to be peaceful. Um, you may have some dream if you're listening to this. I know when I was younger, I read the 4 hour work week, and there was it's ironic because I often work 4 times a day, but the principles are good. And there was something that was said in that, which was most people choose unhappiness over uncertainty.
Mm.
And I think that line has always stood out to me. I remember most people choose unhappiness over uncertainty. I remember like back when I was studying that I was surrounded by people that are doing biomedical engineering, which was my background. And everybody around me was saying, I was saying, what do you want to do next year? But this is years ago. And they said, oh, I don't want to be it, but I'll do biomedical engineering. Okay. What do you want to do? I'll be an engineer. What about you? I'll be an engineer. Now the person will say, I'm going to do a master's. I'd say, why? And they said, because I'm not ready to be an engineer yet. But the idea was that the only opportunity that they knew with 100% certainty wasn't making them happy was the one they were going for. Therefore, anything else had a greater than 0% chance of success.
Yeah.
I think there's an element of some cost fallacy that goes down when you are an entrepreneur, when you've got staff and you've got revenue and all these different things. You've got social status. You're thinking you're like someone playing at the slots machine, the casino.
Yeah.
You don't want to lose because you've invested that much. But I think
Yeah.
if you know for a fact whatever you're doing right now won't make you happy, maybe lean towards uncertainty. That's my thoughts.
That's actually great. I'm gonna have to steal that from you.
Far ahead. I was stealing it from someone else. Go on. It's not my idea. But listen, I love this. I think this conversation is been a lot more enlightening than I expected it to be. So I really really enjoyed this, Jimmy.
Same here.
Yeah. Fuck, I'm trying not to smile. Yeah, I'm just there's definitely so many questions I want to ask you, but well, I'll have one question for you, and I'll let you go on with your day. Before you took the plunge, before you made this business adjustment, before you went to Laos, and you experienced these things that fundamentally change your paradigm and how you view the world. Were you scared? What fears did you have? Were you afraid of losing everything? Um, what was going through your head before you took action, before the action took place?
Hmm. That's a great question. I'll answer the first one. Was I scared? The answer to that was no. And the reason behind because similar to you, and I think I shared this with you earlier, not this when we met before. I was a workaholic myself. Like I said, I was not afraid of work. So when I started the practice, I worked 90 to 100 hours every week. And so I did that for probably the first 2 years, and then I still continued working 80 plus hours after that. So I was not immune to hard work, and so through my hard work, I was able to build a practice, grow it exponentially, and so I knew back then that as long as I was willing to put in the work, there's no way I could fail. So that fear of things falling apart, it really didn't come to my brain. Um, and what was your second question? So that answers the first question.
I think it was a continuation of the second thing. If you didn't have that concern, what was going through your head before you did take action? And how did this come about in the first place? I hope you
Would
don't mind if it's oversharing.
yeah. No. This is good. No, I love talking about this stuff. I mean, um, it goes into my spirituality, and so taking the faith of going to the Laos and Philippines and Vietnam, and then coming back and actually prior to that, I was already shifting. I was already shifting, post COVID, and so the shift that I made was pre-COVID. I was 100% dependent and on me. I was self-absorbed. I knew I could do it because I already did it.
Yeah.
Uh, and as long as I am in play, I am in control. There's no way I could fail because
Hmm.
I have it. And so
Yeah.
it was all my success was due to me. That was my belief. Post COVID, what I did was switched my focus. I switched my focus to be instead of 100% dependence upon me and my abilities to do things, I switched my dependence onto Jesus Christ. I focused on God. God being 100% dependent upon God, giving it everything up to Him, and I am at peace with this. There's a book that I read. It's called Sacred Pace. It's written by this person who built. His name is Terry Looper. He built a $4 billion business in Houston, Texas. He is a believer as well, and he did things opposite of the norm. And this one will shock you, because it shocked me. That's why I bought the book. Um, his team, his sales team, never had a sales target. He did not give them a sales goal or sales target. But yet, he was able to build a $4 billion business, which is crazy because we have targets. All my team have, hey, we got to hit these metrics, right? Yeah. He didn't have it. He didn't have it. And so that was like, okay, I need to be, so I shifted my focus to be dependent upon God. And to the point where his book of Sacred Pace means we get to a point where we are neutral. When we, like our car, we put our car in neutral. So in neutral means you could go forward, you could slide backwards. Depends on, where your car is. Same in my spirituality, it I need to get neutral. God could help me build my business and make it go forward and grow even more, or he could have me close the business. And so I got to a point where I did get neutral, where whatever happened, if God wants me to close the business or if God wants me to continue to grow the business, I'm okay with both options. It really doesn't matter. And so I got to that point, and I am currently at that point where if my clinic, my businesses have to close, this new venture has to close, I'm okay with it because my focus right now is not on profit. My focus is not on how much more money I can make, because I'm very fortunate. God has blessed me, my wife, very, even before all this, we're at a point where we don't need to work ever. But so now my focus is not on making more profit, more money, and blah, 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 and more status, more recognition. I don't even care if anybody doesn't even know, if people don't even know that I developed this new technology. I don't really care. I just want it in the hands of the people that need it. And so I'm at this place where if God wants it to happen, it'll happen. If God doesn't want it to happen, I'm okay. Either way, I don't really care. So that is, I kind of got off tangent, but
No, this
I
is
love,
great. I
yeah.
literally just take a note of the book team. It's added to my reading.
But yeah, it's so crazy. He had no sales goals, and he required all of his team members to work no more than 40 hours a week, which is crazy.
Wow.
But yeah, so that just, it's just completely, yeah.
Where do you find out about him? Was there a podcast episode or that's a
Actually,
that piece of information?
yeah, so, I do something, so in Austin, Texas, so in part of my church, we do something called prayer walking. So we go through different communities. We're at different communities in our city, and we are praying for people. We go there to a park and we just walk around the community and pray for the community, for the people there who, and so one of the brothers that was walking with me, we were just chatting as we were praying and just chatting, and he's the one that mentioned to me because he met this guy, Terry Looper, and he knew I was an entrepreneur, and so he's like, "Hey, you might wanna check this book out." 'Cause then he's like, 'cause he has no sales goals and only works 40 hours a week, and he built a $4 billion company. I'm like, "What?
From
How is
you go. That's
possible?
swing too. Yeah.
How is that even possible?" It is.
Wow.
I mean, he sold the company, but yeah, it's yeah. So
That's
it's a great book. It's a great book.
that's amazing. Yeah, so the more time's gone on for me, I think the less focus I put on. I mean, I say this now. I've got literally Shoe Dog over here. I've got the Harvard Business Review and every marketing book under the sun within a 50 centimeter distance from me. But I think as time goes on, um, the inner game, to put a Western term on it, I think becomes more and more important. I.e., and to put a less, for lack of a better word, douchebaggy term on it, your why, your faith in something bigger than yourself, your mindset, regardless of where somebody stands, whether they're, they're Muslim, whether they're Jewish, whether they're Christian, whether they're Hindu, whatever, agnostic,
Mm.
whatever it is, believing that it's not all about you. I think a friend of mine said that, not a friend, that's not true. As I heard before, there's a freedom in insignificance. And if you as an individual aren't the center of the universe, then that should be fundamentally empowering because you can do what you want. And yeah, what I'll finish this with on my end is, speaking of which, when I was younger, you know, I'll leave my own beliefs out of this, but when I was younger, Ireland, Catholic country traditionally, and there's a priest that would come in and he would, tell these different stories. And there's one that jumped to my, that I've actually mentioned on a previous podcast, which was, did you ever hear the little girl and the starfish?
The
Sorry?
starfish.
On the
No,
beach.
no.
So he told this story, and I think he was referring to, I think it was in reference to Jesus, but there was a little girl on the beach, right? And the tide was out, and there were thousands and thousands of starfish, you know, trying up how to die, whatever. And she's throwing them back into the ocean, into the sea. And an older man walks by and said, "Why are you doing that?" He's like, "You're not going to get them all." She's like, "I know." But she picked up a starfish. She threw it back in. She's like, "But I had that one." She picked up another. She's like, "I had that one."
Yeah.
And yeah, that's just the story. It's you may not say everything, but you're still a positive net sum. So I think there's a lot to it. So yeah, I love
Well,
it. In a nutshell.
if everybody just picked up
Picked up
5
starfish.
starfishes, right? If everybody in the world, right, we would not have any of the wars that we have right now, all the chaos we would have right now. If everybody just did their part, right, to move to whatever, it doesn't matter what religion you believe in, just do your part to help your fellow human being. I mean,
Yeah.
just think of the world that we would have. It would be completely different from today.
I think another thing on top of that was, you don't need to affect a million people. You could help one. And that person might be the person to help a million people. You lead by
Absolutely.
example. What's that? Oh, it's a movie. It was a quote in that movie, Coach Carter. Basically, was it Nelson Mandela? I don't know. It's not our light that, it's not our darkness that most frightens us, but it's our light, basically, because our light, shines on whatever, where our
Oh,
potential isn't that scarce. So something to the effect of we're all supposed to shine as children are. I don't know. The idea is,
yeah.
I don't know, do good stuff. I'm rambling here now.
I thought
But
of when you said that, I thought about direct marketing. That's what direct marketing is.
which
Yeah. Like you affect one person, that person affects another person, 2 people, 3 people, and just for the multi-level marketing.
it's a pyramid scheme of positivity.
Yes, exactly.
Benevolent pyramid scheme. Well, there you go. There you go. That's the new model to impact world change. That's your evil plan for world positivity. And
Thanks.
Right, Jimmy. We'll leave it at that. But listen, I've enjoyed this immensely.
Likewise. Likewise.
Yeah, and you give me a lot to chew on over the Christmas break, and I do a lot of reflection myself, so I appreciate it, and hopefully pass on the message. So, where can people find you more about what you do, your plans, and so on?
Yeah, they can find me all over social media. It's at Achieve Integrative Health. At Achieve Integrative Health. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Just at Achieve Integrative Health. You can find me.
Amazing. Hopefully we'll do this again because
Yeah,
be about the business side of things or otherwise. But I love this, Jimmy, and thanks so much.
you're welcome. All right. See you, Tomas.